welcome. This is 100 Devs. We are a 30-week entirely free software engineering bootcamp. So if you've ever wanted to learn how to code, come join us. We got an amazing community here on Twitch and on Discord. Thousands of folks on our Discord channel, folks that are wanting to help you learn how to code. So this is the place to be. Tonight, we're talking about Git and GitHub, and it doesn't get any better because we have Microsoft Azure sponsoring our class. As you know, Microsoft recently acquired GitHub, and so can't have a better sponsor than the folks that own them. I'm going to have you using Git to manage some really basic stuff this evening. You should be able to walk away with knowing how you can use Git to help you right now to back up your code, to take some risk in your code without worry of breaking stuff, and then how to have a full backup of your code on GitHub. By the end of tonight, you should feel a little bit more comfortable with Git if you've never used it before. You should understand what GitHub does and how it ties into Git. And then you should also be able to host all of your projects on GitHub for free. This is meant to be a really great introduction for folks that have probably never touched the terminal before. Git is one of those topics. For folks that are new, maybe if you're not watching this here on Twitch live, my name is Leon. I am the managing director of engineering for a nonprofit called Resilient Coders. My day-to-day job is to help folks learn how to code. I'm also distinguished faculty at General Assembly, helping folks learn the code at night. I've seen thousands of students come across my door, and I've helped hundreds of folks get jobs as software engineers. This topic, Git and GitHub, is where people kind of freak out a little bit. Using the command line for the first time, understanding what Git's really doing for the first time, connecting it to this thing called GitHub. That's a lot of terminology, a lot of struggles, and for some folks, it might be a little bit of a shock to a system. We're going to try and not get lost in the sauce here, and we're going to try and make it make sense. LeonNoel.com/100devs has everything you need to know about our bootcamp. It's a great place to come and learn, and we got people that want to support you in your coding journey. But first and foremost, just don't let your dreams be dreams. Find a community that can help you, that can support you on your coding journey. If this is something that you really want, definitely join us at 100 Devs. We would love to support you throughout your journey into tech. If you leave with nothing else, like, yes, we're going to get to Git and GitHub, but if you're new in your coding journey, these are the two most important concepts I need you to walk away with right now. Git's going to be this wonderful cherry on top tonight, but these are the things I need you to learn. These two things are going to save you so much time and effort and actually help you finally learn this stuff for real. Active recall. So there's a video here by Ali Abdal. This video changed my life. It's changed the lives of a lot of my students. What they talk about is a study technique called active recall. What the idea here is that you can consume something and then actively recall the things that you just learned. If you, say, read a chapter of a book, at the end of reading that chapter of the book, take a moment to stop and actually recall all the things that you just learned. What did you learn? What are the topics? What are the things that were hard, were easy? And ask yourself a bunch of questions about the things that you just learned. There was a study where they gave individuals, I think it was, I believe, one chapter of a book to read, and then a week later they had a quiz on it. The individuals that read the chapter once and then did the active recalling did better than the individuals that read it 4 times. Could you imagine doing a fourth of the work but getting better results? That's why this idea of active recall is so important. At the end of tonight, active recall. When we take a break, active recall. I often talk to 2 things, my rubber ducky and Bob. This is Bob there on the screen. You can see him in the corner. Simba just doesn't want to be on the bed. Simba's like right in front of the bed. So for me, when I'm done reading something, talk to my rubber duck, which is somewhere on my desk, and I talk to Bob, right? I'm not talking to myself, I'm talking to Bob or my duck. And that idea of actively recalling actually makes the concept stick. Don't just watch tonight's class and then go about your day. Take a few minutes. What did I learn? What are the commands I learned? What are the concepts I learned? How could I apply them? Can I do them again? That active recall is going to make these topics stick for you. There's one other technique, and this technique is called spaced repetition. Now, this graph here was a study of one. This person memorized 3-digit letters and then kept an eye on how long it took them to forget those 3-digit combinations or those 3-letter combinations. They started noticing, really, after just only 20 minutes, there was a good chance that they had forgotten just those 3 letters. And by the end of like 30 days, there was almost an 80% chance that they had forgotten it. And so this is the forgetting curve, which is very real. For each person, it's completely different. For some folks, this might be very shallow. For some folks, it might be very steep. But the idea here is that you're going to forget the content that you learn. So if you're putting in effort tonight to learn these concepts, make sure you're using spaced repetition so that you don't forget everything that you put the effort into learning. All spaced repetition is reviewing material multiple times so that each time you review it, your forgetting curve flattens. And if you review material enough, it's going to be a really, really, really long time before you forget it. And once again, Ali Abdaal just has an amazing video on spaced repetition that really drives home this concept and how you can apply it to the things that you're learning. Here at 100 Devs, we use Anki. Anki is a 100% free tool. What it's going to enable you to do is to make flashcards, but the flashcards have an algorithm behind them. The algorithm knows when it's time to surface that material so that it flattens that forgetting curve on that material. If that's all you get from tonight, active recall and spaced repetition, use these 2 concepts. They will serve you very well, and it will make it so that this time you're trying to learn how to code, this time you're trying to learn how to use Git, it's going to actually stick. There's a community that you can join where you won't be alone. You can work through code together. You can learn the things you need to learn. So if you're interested in joining our free 30-week software engineering bootcamp, you can go to leonnoel.com/100devs. That'll have everything you need to know about joining our bootcamp, how to join our Discord, and get the help you need on your learning to code journey. All right, let's get it on. We got a lot of fun stuff to get into. First, the terminal. If you've never heard of the terminal, you never really understood what it was. When you're first kind of reading about the terminal, there's all these really weird commands that get thrown around. Terminal bash. I asked you to download git bash, Unix shell, CLI, CMD. It's just a lot of really confusing terms. The only thing you need to really think about in terms of a terminal right now is just a place where you can type some commands and those commands cause actions to happen. So it's like a place where you type something and then things happen. That's all it is. Now we're gonna use the word commands. You might even hear people throw around the word utilities, but it's just things that we're typing and then stuff happens on our computer. That's all it is. Apple II is one of the trinity of early home computing, the first really big run of consumer computing. And this Apple II was really expensive. I looked up on Wikipedia and then I plugged it into like a current time in terms of like what money would be worth right now. And so if you bought the Apple II at the bare minimum spec, it's like 4 kilobits or something, I don't even know what it is, like really small amount of RAM, it was about $5,000. And if you bought the Mac spec, it was 11 plus grand, right? For the Apple II. And you paid all this money, you took it home, and this is what you had. Let's let that sink in for a second. This was next gen too. This was like, had color and other wild stuff, but you paid all that money, you brought it home, you had this. There was no what we call a GUI, a graphical user interface. Now, when we navigate around our computers, we have icons that we can click on, things that we can drag around, easier ways to navigate our computer. But before we had the GUI, we had the CLI, or the command line interface. We would just type in our commands and the computer would do stuff. The funny thing is, I opened up the emulator and I was trying a bunch of commands to like get stuff to work, and I couldn't figure it out. I had to pull up like an old school manual on how the Apple II worked. And it still took me a little while to figure out what was going on. But it's cool. And like this one, you can like load in different files and stuff. Here's the Xmas card you can load in. There you go. That's lit. The idea here was that there was no GUI. There was no icons. There was nothing that we were clicking and dragging. There was just a little blinking light after which we could type commands, and that's how we controlled the computer. And the cool thing is, those commands still exist. we still have a terminal that we can use to do a bunch of really great stuff on our computer. We can use it to open files, to run small programs, to do a bunch of stuff. And you can navigate your entire folder system all from that single command line interface. So let's look at some common commands that we can use in the terminal. Don't worry about typing this along right now. I want you to see it. I want you to absorb it. Who created an account to do that? Bill Gates, thank you for the sub. Not complaining, but it was a tier 1. That's hilarious. All right. So what I was saying is don't worry about the actual typing out, like following along, like watch this, ask questions if you have questions, and then I'm going to ask you to do it. If you don't already have a terminal, I'm going to walk you through how to get and use the terminal. But for now, let's walk through these together. Here is one of the first commands that you're going to use, pwd. So I have opened up a program on my computer called the terminal. On Macs and GNU Linux, it is a program that is already installed. You just go to your applications and you open up the program called terminal. If you're on Windows, you have something slightly different called a command prompt, but I asked everyone yesterday to install something on Windows called Git Bash. What Git Bash is going to do is all the commands that I'm using on Mac and GNU Linux will also work on Windows. If you're on Windows, I'm going to ask you to install something called WSL. It is a Linux subsystem for Windows. It's amazing. But for tonight, we're just going to use Git Bash. You just download a program, you run it, and you're off to the start here. You can just do all of the standard settings and you'll be fine for this evening. Here I've opened up the terminal, which is just a program on my computer. And this is where I'm going to have that command line interface. This is the same interface that we would have like if we just had that Apple II back in the day. The first command I'm going to show you is pwd. All you do is you type it in and you hit enter. That's it. And what it's going to do is going to show you the full working directory. The terminal is a great way to move through my entire computer. Just like I have folders down here, like this is my class 21 folder. You can see the same thing up here, but you're seeing the full path to get to that folder. Right now, you can see that I'm in my users folder. This is my username. I'm on my desktop. On my desktop, I have a folder called stream. Inside that folder, I have a folder called 100 devs, and then I have a class 21 folder. I can do the same thing. I can start from my desktop. I can go to my stream folder. I go to my 100 devs folder, and then I can go to my class 21 folder. We're used to using what we have down here on the bottom. This is our GUI. This is the graphical user interface. This is how most of you have probably used your computers your entire lives. This terminal, this command line interface might be a little odd, but it's basically doing all the same things that you do with the GUI, just text-based. So this pwd command is a great command because it shows you currently where you're at. You can see that I'm in the class 21 folder. Next command, make dir or make directory. You're going to see the word directory used a lot. For this purpose, just think of a directory as a folder. It's just a folder, right? Let's just use the word folder for tonight. Don't get confused when people say like, oh, make a directory, go up a directory. No, just you're making a folder and then you're going to move into that folder. And so let's type out this command, mkdir, and then you're going to put the name of your folder. I'm just going to name this folder example. Great. And so what you just saw, as soon as I hit enter, you could see down here in my GUI that the example folder was created. So that's all it's doing. We are using these commands, and those commands are doing stuff on our computer. So this make directory, what it did is actually create that directory and we can see it. So look at the next command, change directory. All this enables you to do is just to go into a folder. If I go up here and I do cd, and then I can do the name of my folder. So I'm going to do example. And the cool thing is a lot of times you can hit tab and it will autocomplete for you. So this cd example, once I hit enter, it's going to take me into the example folder. And so you can see now here, I'm no longer in the class 21 folder. I am now in this example folder. And let's look at our next command. What if we didn't want to stay in the example folder? What if we wanted to go back up to the class 21 folder? What if I wanted to go up a level? Well, I can do cd ... And watch what happens. I am back up into the class 21 folder now. So if I was actually looking at this, what happened is I went into example, if I'm using the GUI, and then I went back up to the class 21 folder. That's all we're doing. Those that are doing the bootcamp with 100 devs, we've seen this ... before. Sometimes we have our CSS in a folder that we have to go up a level, or maybe you're already inside of your CSS file and you want to go out of the CSS folder and into an images folder. You would have saw something like ... images, where you were saying, all right, I'm going to go up out of the CSS folder and into the images folder. So we've seen this ... before if you've been kind of doing some web development. And basically that's what it's saying. It's just saying, hey, if you're in this folder, go up a level. And that command comes from what we're doing here in the terminal. So that's how we can go up a folder, and we can have a little fun with it, right? Like I can do multiple. Now I'm back in my root 100 devs folder. If I want to go back into the class 21 folder, how can I do that? How can I go from the 100 devs folder to the class 21 folder? We can do cd and then the name of the folder, class 21. Great. Now you can see that I'm back into the class 21 folder. If you ever want to go in a folder, it's cd and then the name of the folder. If you want to go up a folder, like out of the folder, cd ... There are a few other commands here that are important. We have this cd tilde, and the cd tilde does something really unique. Let me show you. Cd tilde, and I hit enter. It's going to go all the way back to my user folder. If I want to get back to my class 21 folder, I can do the path. I can do cd, and I could do like desktop one at a time if I wanted to, or I can do cd, and then I got to go into my stream folder, cd stream 100 devs class 21, and that command took me all the way back into the class 21 folder. If I was to do that here on my GUI at the bottom here, I would go from my desktop to my stream to my 100 devs to my class 21, and then I'm in the class 21 folder, and you can see that example folder that we've seen before. All right, so that was a nice command. Let's look at another one here. Touch. So far we've been able to like move in and out of folders. We've been able to create a folder. What if we want to create a file? So let's go ahead, let's go into the example folder and then make a file. So I'm going to cd into example. Cool. And then I am going to make a file. So I'm going to do touch index.html. And if you look, you can see automatically that index file was created inside of the example folder. So that touch gives us the ability to create a file. So we saw the ability to move in and out of folders, to create folders, but also to create files, all from the command line here, all in this terminal window. All right, let's keep it moving. ls is a wonderful command that enables you to see all of the stuff that's inside of the folder that you are in. It's going to show us all of the wonderful stuff that's in here. So I'm going to do ls. I'm going to do ls. Hit enter, and when I hit that ls command, it's going to enable you just like the list stuff, right? You can see that there is an index.html inside the example folder. So it's just enabling us to see what's inside of that folder. So list will show us kind of quick stuff that's inside the folder. ls with a flag, whenever you see the hyphen followed by another letter or something like that, we call those flags. They're kind of just like basically like little changes to what you're asking the command to do. Some folks might not call these commands, they might call them something like utility, like they're like programs that are running on your computer sometimes. And these flags can help you modify what you're asking for. When I do this ls-la or -l for right now, you're going to see slightly different result. You're going to see a couple interesting things. This right here is kind of like the permissions for the file. Like, are you able to make changes or not? This is kind of like who made it, when they made it. And so you can see that we just made it a few seconds ago. That lsl command is going to give you a little bit more details that you might need depending on what you're doing. And then there's one other command that's kind of the same vein here with just a different flag. And that's ls-la. And that's going to give you all the goodies. It's going to give you everything that you need. And so it's going to give you not only the stuff that we saw with ls-l, right, with the L flag, but now you're going to also see the hidden files. Sometimes there's like a DS store file, or there's a file that you can't see in the GUI, but with the ls-la command, you'll be able to see it here in the terminal. There is a command to remove files. Right now I could go ahead and do rm and then just the index.html. And if I remove it, you can see it disappeared automatically in the GUI as well. That file is gone. It's gone. There's another command that we can use here too. The rm-r can be used to remove folders. So let's go up a level, cd ... Now we are in our class 21 folder and we want to remove that example folder. So let's go ahead and do rm, we're going to do -r, and then we're going to say example. And boom, that folder gone, right? It's gone. So we removed it. There's one other command. So if there are stuff inside the folder that have special permissions, or if you just want to be quicker about it, there is also the dreaded rm-rf. It's not dreaded, it's just really powerful. What this stands for is force. It stands for force. So you could do the rm-rf and then the name of the folder. Whenever you see these carets, just know that those carets go away too. That's just kind of showing you that you're going to plug something in, but those carets go away too. The rm-rf, you got to be real careful with it, because once it's gone, and it will forcefully remove anything. As long as you have permissions to use it, it'll go away. Nowadays, a lot of times this is kind of protected on certain things, but whenever you're using a force command, always be careful. Make sure you're not deleting something that you don't really want to delete. Alrighty, so we got one more command that I want to show, and then we're going to take a break. It's a wonderful command. It is clear. I hit clear. You ready? Boom. Doesn't change anything. It just gets rid of all the stuff that's currently in the terminal so that you can start fresh at the top. So clears it out so that you have a nice, clean workspace to start working again. I love everybody saying, ooh, wow, so clear. I love it. It is clear. It is the top of the hour. If you're new here, we like to stay healthy. We encourage taking breaks. If you are able, get up, take a break, hydrate. If you have to stay seated or however you are viewing the stream and you're able, maybe get some hand stretches in. If you can't get hand stretches in, maybe look away from the screen, let your eyes focus on something that's a little bit further away. And we are going to take a 5-minute break. Welcome back. Hope you had a good break. There's one other kind of brief command before we talk about how you can get the terminal going. We're going to be using VS Code tonight to edit some of our code. And the really cool thing is that you can open up the stuff that you create in VS Code directly from the terminal. Let's say you didn't want to use the VS Code terminal for whatever reason, or let's say you already had this open and you wanted to go from here to VS Code. You can just type code, and then whatever you put after it, the folder, the file name, that'll open up in VS Code for you. This is the command to do it. You have to open up VS Code, and when you open up VS Code, what you're going to see is that you can do view and then that command palette inside the view dropdown. And then you have this lovely thing that you can just click on, and that will enable you to install the code path. So whenever you type code in your terminal, it'll open stuff into VS Code for you. That's just another way to get to your files and stuff like that. Let me go ahead and create a file here and then show you that. So I'm going to create a new directory like we saw earlier called example. And then I'm going to move into example. And I am going to create an index.html file. So touch index.html. There we go. So you can see in my GUI that there is an index.html. I can now do something really cool. I can just do code and then index.html. I hit enter. And there we go. I got VS Code opening up, and it opened up the index.html directly into VS Code for me. If you want this to work, all you have to do is select view, command palette. There might be a keyboard command depending on what you're using. On Mac, it's Shift Command P. You click that view, you click command palette, and you get this thing here. And what you're looking for is shell command install code path. You click that, and that's it. You're ready to rock and roll. From your terminal, you can now open up VS Code directly. And it works with not only just individual files, but if I go up a level, right, I can do code and then example. And it'll open up the entire folder for me with the tree view on the left-hand side, which is always pretty clutch. So that's one way. You can always kind of just do your normal way that you open your folders and your files, but that was a good way of doing it. Now, so how are you going to access the terminal? If you are on Windows, I highly recommend installing Git for Windows. which will install Git Bash for you. Git for Windows is going to, or Git Bash is going to give you the same command. So all the commands we just used and learned about are going to work in Git Bash fine, and you can set things up the normal way here. You can also open the terminal right in VS Code as well, and so we'll see that in a few minutes. If you are on Mac or GNU Linux, you can go ahead and go to your applications, and there should be a terminal application that comes with Mac or GNU Linux. What you see here is not actually the default terminal. That's something called iTerm. It's just something I prefer. It enables me to do transparency on the terminal, which is really nice. I'm not sure if that's built into the traditional Mac one, but there's a lot of little improvements that I like about it that I use iTerm instead of the default. So don't worry about Git yet. We want to get that terminal up and running. And what I would like for you to do is to set up a normal folder path for the front end code that we've been working on. So if you're new here, we are part of a 30-week software engineering bootcamp where we've covered HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What I'm asking you to do is to, in the terminal, create a folder. In that folder, have your normal setup, your index, your CSS folder, your JavaScript folder, your style.css, your main.js. Set all of that up, but don't you dare touch that GUI. All CLI. Don't you touch that GUI. All right. Don't touch it. All from the terminal. So let's go ahead and do this together. I am going to delete my folder first. So I'm just going to delete it and do the whole thing. Let me go ahead and clear so that there's nothing here. I am going to remove forcefully my example folder. Watch my GUI. I'm going to hit enter. Rip. Now let's go ahead and create that folder. So I'm going to do makedir. Cool. I'm going to call it example. We got the folder back. Let's go into that folder. Cool. Now we're in that folder. We can see, I can even ask, hey, where am I at? Great. You can see I'm inside my class 21 folder. I'm inside of example. Let me go ahead and clear just again. All right, I'm inside the example folder. Let's go ahead and make our HTML file touch index.html. Cool. So you can see now I got my HTML file. Let's make a CS folder or CSS folder. Make dir CSS. Let's also make our JavaScript folder while we're here. I'm gonna go into the CSS folder. Cool. You can see that I am in the CSS folder right now. I am going to go ahead and do a touch. And I'm going to create a style.css. Cool. If I go down to my GUI here, you're going to see that the style.css is in there. I want to go back up though. I want to get to my JavaScript folder. I'm in the CSS folder. How do I get to the JavaScript folder? Cool. Yeah, we're going to do cd ... Nice. Cool. We want up. We're in the main example folder now. And now we can cd into the JS folder. All right, we're in the JavaScript folder. Let's go ahead and create our main.js. Cool. It looks good. I'm going to go up a level. I'm back at the example folder, kind of the root level of the example folder. I'm going to go ahead and go up a level one more, go back to the class 21. And then I'm going to use the code, that code path to just open the entire folder. And there you go. It's going to open up in VS Code for me. And we have our little tree view over here. I'm going to go to my index.html and I'm going to do the normal shortcut that we always use. There we go. And I'm just going to put an H1 in here. Thank you, Microsoft Azure. There we go. Quick thank you to them because, folks, we just did it. We set up the entire folder structure. You can see it here in the GUI if you don't believe me. And in that GUI, we have our lovely folder with our CSS folder, our JavaScript folder. We have a style.css and an index.html. And if we look in the JavaScript folder, is also our main.js. We did the whole thing without touching the GUI. I hope the terminal is a little less scary now. For a lot of folks, they kind of panic when they see this terminal thing, but really it's just a way for you to navigate your computer, to run some programs without needing the GUI, without needing to drag and drop folders. All right, so what the heck is this Git thing? Let's go back a few years. Travel with me. Travel with me back a few years. I had a very interesting high school experience. I went to an engineering high school, and I remember using floppy disks to back up my work. So let's say I was using Microsoft Word and I wanted to back up my stuff. I put it on a floppy disk. By the end of my high school experience, we had flash drives. So there was like a year or two of like me going to the library and paying $0.25 for a floppy disk. And then there was like zip drives for like 6 months. And then by the end time I graduated, we were using flash drives. I remember always being in the library, frantically trying to finish up a paper before I had to turn it in next class. I was really paranoid about losing my work. So I always had like multiple floppy drives. I would put the drive in, I would save it, I'd take it out, I put another one in, save it on that one, and I'd be doing this obsessively, like wasting so much time during my lunch just trying to finish this project. But I was just really afraid of like the computer crashing and me losing everything. Now, by the end of high school and maybe like the beginning of my time at university, I started doing this other technique. I would get my Word document to a point where I really liked what was going on, and then I would zip it, like zip everything that was there and email it to myself. Let's say we're working on like a pretty long paper. By the end of like me working on that paper, I would have like 20 emails to myself that were just different versions of the same project. It was the same essay, but there were 20 different versions of it just in my email. This is before we had Microsoft Online 365, right? It was before we had that and things kind of auto saved. And so by the time I was ready to submit, I would look back through my email and I would see 20 different versions of my same essay. And sometimes I would be like really unhappy with the current version of my essay, but it was too far gone for me to like start making a bunch of changes. And so what I would do is I would just go back to an older email, download that file and start using that one. And so that was my like really rudimentary way of something we call version control. I could go back through my email and find all these different versions of that same essay at different points in time. If I didn't like the one I was currently working on, I could go back to a different one. Whenever I was happy with where I was at with the essay, I would save it, email it to myself. It was a very rudimentary, born out of necessity way for me to back up all of my stuff. What if I wanted to also work with someone else? Maybe we were both working on this essay together. So I've been like paranoid, saving, emailing to myself. I got 20 different versions of the same essay. What would I do if I wanted to work with someone else? This is before like track changes were a thing. So what I was doing is I was saving my essay, emailing it to someone else. They would email it back. You remember all this? Do you remember having to do this? And then there would be like changes made in it. I would update my changes. I would email it to myself again to back it up. Maybe I would email it back to them. It was horrible. Thank you, Bill Gates, if you're still in chat. Microsoft 365 changed the game. Like the ability, like all this stuff just kind of happens for us now is wild. But this idea of like saving different versions of my essay and being able to send different versions of my essay to people that want to work with me is exactly what Git does for our code. It's all it is. It's just enabling us to like make these save points as we're working on our code. And the really cool thing is that we can back up these save points on a service like GitHub. We can make this save point and then we can back up our save point on GitHub. And the really, really cool thing about Git and GitHub is not only can I back up my code on GitHub, but there's a whole suite of tools that make it really easy for other developers to like grab my code, make changes, for me to see the changes, to approve changes. And so if you're having a hard time thinking of what Git is, think of me struggling in university to back up my essay. Every once in a while, I'm saving it and I'm sending it to my email. If I wanted to work with somebody else, I'm sending them that email. Git is the exact same thing. It's a way of taking a snapshot, like a nice little save point for wherever you're at in your code. And the beautiful thing about it is you just have all these different save points. And if you ever want to go back in time, you can just roll back to one of those save points, to one of those snapshots. And so it's magic. It changes the way in which you as a developer write code because it removes like this level of fear It removes this level of fear that if I completely mess everything up, I know that I can just roll back to one of those save points. Just like I could open up my email and grab the version of the essay from a couple emails ago and start fresh from that save point, Git is the same thing. And now not only does it enable us to have local save points, like saving multiple different snapshots locally on our computer, if we use GitHub, we can also back it up remotely so that those save points exist not only on our computer, but on a cloud service like GitHub, so that I can, if something was to go wrong with my laptop, all my code is on GitHub. So all I have to do is pull down my code from GitHub and I'm back to right where I started. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to see how Git can help us kind of make these save points or these snapshots for our code. We're going to see how to use Git to enable us to do some more risky stuff, which I'll show in a few minutes. And then we're going to show how to back up our stuff on GitHub. And then the really cool thing is once you put those save points or snapshots on GitHub, you can instantly turn them into live websites. So if it's a static file, like if it's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you do like one thing real quick and you can instantly have it hosted, which is really cool using something called GitHub Pages. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see how Git can enable us to make these save points for our code. We're going to see how, since we have save points, we can take some more risks with our code. And then we're going to learn how to not have things all locally, but start getting our stuff off of our machine and have real true backups so that if something was to ever happen to our machine, we can pull down our code and get back to where we started. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to finish off with this idea of being able to, once we push our stuff up to GitHub, there are a lot of really cool features that make it easy to work with developers. But one really cool thing is turning your sites instantly into hosted sites. We're going to see it. The technical term for this is version control. All that means is that it's a really fancy way of tracking changes. So you're going to hear people call Git version control, just another term for fancy way of keeping track of changes. The key thing with Git is it enables you to make these snapshots. There's a deeper meaning to the word snapshot, but for now, just think of it as like all your code saved. It makes it really easy to take these snapshots by making something called a commit. So if you think about like a real snapshot, you hit like the button and it like takes a photo. You can take a save point of your code. You can make a snapshot of your code by making a commit. So that's the terminology that we're going to use. Our commits enable us to kind of take that snapshot of all of our code. And then the beautiful thing is that if you mess something up, or you don't like the trajectory you've gone with the code that you're working on, you can always roll back to previous commits or previous snapshots. The beautiful thing is we can roll back to those previous save points and start fresh. So a lot of folks, when they're first learning, one of the barriers to them pushing is they're really afraid that they're going to mess everything up, right? Like if I don't pay attention, maybe my JavaScript gets so far away from me, I lose my train of thought. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's a really scary thing. The idea that you might mess up some things that are already working. Well, with Git, you can always roll back to a save point that you knew was working. And we're going to see something called branches too that enable you to make these risks a little bit easier. That's kind of a quick overview of what Git is. That's a tough topic. Kudos to you to digging in and pushing your brain to understand it. If you did not install Git yet, here are some commands you can use to install Git. If you are on Windows and you've already installed Git for Windows, you're fine. You're already set up. You're good to go. Just hang on for a second and we'll get you moving. If you are on Mac OS and you do not have Git installed, there is a way to install it through Homebrew, which is what I recommend and what I use. What you're going to do is open up your terminal and you're going to take this entire line. Whenever you see the bling, like that $sign, that just lets you know that's where the command starts. You don't ever include the bling. You can see the bling here in the terminal. That's just letting you know that's where you start entering your commands. It's not part of the command. Doesn't matter where you're at in the process in your terminal. If you feel comfortable, some folks just like to do a quick CD tilde just to be at their kind of root, but you're just going to take this whole line, it's going to copy it, and you're just going to paste it here, and that's it. You'll hit enter and it'll install Homebrew for you. Once Homebrew is installed, you do brew install Git, and that'll install Git for you. But before you kind of run to do it, if you don't already know, just go ahead and check git-version. What that's going to do is it's going to show you whether or not you have Git already installed. There's a good chance that you have some version of Git installed. So just check, make sure, and then go ahead. And if you need to, do this via Homebrew, which is my preferred way of doing it. Tons of other ways to install it. This one just seems to be the simplest one. I like it through Homebrew. I think it's just easiest. A lot of times when you're running these commands and ask for passwords, what you're going to notice is that you don't actually see the password as you type it. You're typing out your password. It is typing it out. It's just not showing it to you, and then you hit enter. So just be careful. If you are on GNU Linux, you open up your terminal, you do sudo apt-get update, sudo apt-get install. This is for Debian Ubuntu. If you're on a different flavor of GNU Linux, there might be a slightly different command based on the package manager that you are using. Once you have Git installed, by any means that you've done it, if you've done it through Git Bash, you've done it through Homebrew and macOS, you've done it for GNU Linux, once you have it installed, you're going to want to run these two very specific commands. You don't include the $sign. Everything after the $sign is the command you're going to throw in there. And you're not going to use my name. You're going to use your name and your email. The email that you use is important. You should use the same email that you're going to use when you sign up for GitHub. These commands that you just copy and paste into your terminal. Make sure you change your name to whatever it may be. If it's not Leon Noel, maybe it is Leon Noel, maybe it's not. Maybe it's Bob Boberson. I'm not going to hit enter because I don't want to change my Git name to Bob Boberson, but that's the command. What this is going to do is it is going to make sure that when you kind of save those snapshots, those save points of your code, it's going to say that you are the person that made those snapshots, those commits. And so this is really helpful when you're working with other engineers or with other folks to be able to see, all right, who did what, who contributed what. And so it's important that you set these two things. You are totally able to change your email and things like that in the future. Those are the two commands you want to put in. So let's get into some basic Git commands. The first major command that you're going to see is git init. All this is doing, and there's definitely like way more scientific, specific technical terms here. Let's throw all that out the window for right now. And let's just say git init is a special folder to save all of our snapshots. That's all it is. It's like this magical folder that holds all of our snapshots. So all of our save points, all of the essays that we would email to ourselves, instead of emailing those essays to ourselves, we're just throwing them in this magical folder. So git init creates this magical folder where we're going to save our snapshots. And so I'm going to do that. I am right now at my root directory. So I'm going to cd into my desktop, my stream folder, my 100 devs folder, and then my class 21 folder. I'm going to take a quick look in this folder real quick to make sure I'm in the right spot. Yep, there's example. Let me cd into example. I want the git init, like that magic folder, in the folder that I care about. So that's why I went all the way into my example folder, which you see in the GUI down here. Now I'm in the example folder and I'm going to do git init. All that did is create that empty folder that we're going to call a repository that we're going to save all of our snapshots to. If we go ahead and we do a normal ls, we're going to see our normal files. Like we're going to see like the CSS folder, the JavaScript folder. We see our index.html. But if we do an ls-la, we're going to be able to see that, oh, look what we got here. We have a hidden folder. It's a hidden Git folder. And so that's why I said it's like an actual folder where we're going to save all of our snapshots to. So remember that ls-la shows you everything that could be there, including hidden files. You can turn hidden files on in your operating system if you want to. This just kind of shows you those hidden files if you want. We did that git init. And we can see that there is that hidden file in there. I'm going to clear that hidden folder, I should say. So that's the first command. Whenever you want to create the place where you're going to save your snapshots, we're going to use git init. Next, we have this area called staging. So think of it as you're grabbing all your files together, but you haven't saved them into that special folder. So what you're going to do is you're going to have the folder, right? If we draw it out, you're going to have your folder, what you just made with git init. And then you have this stage and you're going to put all your files on the stage. And then once you're happy with everything, then you put it in that special folder. All it is think of a place where we're kind of getting organized. We're going to grab all of our files. And then once we're happy with everything, we can make a snapshot and put that snapshot into that magic folder that we just created. So it's kind of like getting all your files together before you zip them to send them to yourself via email. We can add all the files we care about. we can add all the files we want to this staging area. We can do them one by one. We could if we wanted to. So we could do something like this. I could do git add and then the name of a file. And that would add that file to our staging area. So I could do individual files. If I didn't want to do an individual file, I could do all of one type of file. So here I can do anything that has an HTML ending. So that asterisk would say anything that is an HTML file, these would all get added to this lovely staging area where we're kind of getting all of our stuff together. I can also do everything. And that's what I'm going to do because I have some CSS folders, a JavaScript folder, a bunch of files. So I'm not going to do everything one by one. I am going to do git add dot. And git add dot is the same thing as saying git add all. We're adding everything to the stage. We're putting all this stuff into this staging area. So I'm going to hit enter. Every single one of my files that are inside this example folder are chilling out in the staging area. We have our CSS folder, we have our JavaScript folder, we have our index.html. They're all chilling in this staging area. So we put them all in this lovely area. Let's go ahead and check to see where we're at. You can see all this stuff that's chilling in this staging area. All of our files that we've added, all the stuff that's there. And then what we're going to do is we are going to make a commit. That commit is like taking the snapshot. It's like taking the snapshot that we can then add to that special magical folder. Now, there are some other things that you might want to do. Before we take that snapshot of everything and add it to that magical folder, there might be some things that you want to do. You might want to remove something from this staging area. Maybe you had a couple HTML files you don't want as part of this snapshot. You can use this command to remove a specific file. So if you don't like the stuff that you've put on the stage, you can remove the things that you don't want there. So that is another command. I'm happy with everything that's in that lovely staging area. So I'm going to do git commit. Now there's two ways of doing the commit. There's the one way that kind of induces panic to anyone that's never used the terminal. And there's one way where you don't ever get to see it. So I'm going to show you both ways because I don't want you accidentally to hit git commit and then be a little afraid of what happens. So let me show you. I'm going to do git commit here. Let me clear. I'm going to do git commit. This is me trying to take a snapshot. I have all this stuff that's on my stage. I want to take a snapshot so I can maybe use it in the future, roll back to it. Instead of saving it and emailing it to myself, Git is going to take that snapshot. So I'm going to do git commit. And I get taken into V or Vim. This is where a lot of folks, if they're new, they're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is a text editor that is running in the terminal. A lot of developers use V and Vim or Emacs as like their main development environment if they're not using something like VS Code. And what this is going to enable us to do is to leave a message about the snapshot that we just took. What we can do here is if you get stuck here, there's a couple key commands that you want to do. And I put them down here for you in case you need them. If you are here, you're going to hit the letter I. That's going to take you to insert mode. I'm telling you, this is weird. This is where people freak out. It's going to take you to insert mode. You're going to type your message. Added all of my front end files. So that's the message that's going to be tied to that snapshot. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click escape. And then I'm going to type in :WQ and hit enter. Whew. Now you're out of that editor. You're out of that editor and you're back in the terminal that you feel comfortable with. That's one thing that causes people a lot of panic when they do their first commit because they don't use the message flag. So we can do the same thing without having to go into that editor if we put that flag and then the commit message. Let's go ahead and create another file here. I'm just going to do touch and I'm going to call this like other.html. So now there's another HTML file. I want to add that file to a new snapshot. So I'm going to do git add other.html. I'm going to do a git commit, but this time I'm going to do the -m and then I'm going to put my messages in the quotes. Added other HTML file. So instead of me getting taken to that editor, I can just put my message right here in that command. And then same thing, hit enter. It does the same thing we saw with the other commit. And we have taken a lovely snapshot. In the future, if I ever wanted to go back to a time before I had the other HTML file, I could. I could go look at that other snapshot. And so we're going to use these commands all the time. You're going to use these commands over and over and over and over again, because this is a good way of making sure that every kind of feature you add or thing that you do in your code, you can go ahead and take a snapshot of it so that you can come back to it at a later time if you want. You could say, you know what? I want to go back to that point in time when there was only the index.html. You have the ability to do that. And so the process that we did is we went into our brand new folder and we did git init. This created that magical folder that all of our commits, all of our snapshots are going into. They're all there. We can open it up and see them all in there. Once we created that magical folder, we were able to add our files to a staging area. They weren't ready for the snapshot yet, but we're adding our files. We can add individual files. We can add a bunch of the same type of files. We can add kind of a bunch of them or pretty much all of them at one time. There are some other flags here other than just add dot, but for simplicity's sake, we're sticking to these three right now. We'll see more on Thursday and then Saturday during office hours. And so we put all of the files into this lovely staging area. Once we were ready to take a snapshot, we did git commit, but we used the git commit with this flag because that stops us from having to go into that text editor and make our message there. Once we hit enter on this commit, we've taken a snapshot of all of our code, and now it's in that special init folder that we created, that repository that we created. And if we wanted to, we could go back in time and get it. We're not going to do that right now, like roll back to previous ones. I want to stick to just like the basics here. But this is something that you should be doing all the time. Whenever you add some new bits of functionality to your projects, you want to make sure you're going ahead and doing you probably already have the repo set up. You're going to do your git add, then you're going to do your git commit with a good message about where you are at, so that if you ever do need those snapshots, you have them. It's a heavy topic, folks, but that's the basics. You're really going to do those three things all the time. Git init to create the repository just once. You don't have to do it more than once, just once inside your folder. You're going to do git add, git commit, and that's going to enable you to make all these snapshots. So as you're working on stuff, you want to be making these snapshots. Now, in October of last year, I believe, GitHub kind of led the charge on changing a very specific thing about how kind of Git and then eventually how GitHub looks for it. And that's if we do this git status, you can see here that we are on a branch called master. And so in October of last year, a lot of folks led the charge to change that from master to main. So if you have an older version of Git installed, you're gonna see this master pop up. But if you're installing like the newest version of Git bash, you're gonna see it probably ask you to default to main as like one of the settings. And you can change it to whatever you want, but main is what kind of GitHub is gonna be looking for, and it's what a lot of folks have switched to as this main area that you're working. You can think of branches as like areas in which you are working. This master branch is now main, and if you want, you can change the name of your branch from master to main. You're gonna have to do this if you wanna use GitHub anyway. So you can go ahead and just do git branch with that capital M flag. And now if we do another git status, you can see that we're on branch main, no longer master. So that's kind of the last kind of the big commands that you're gonna see tonight. Those are kind of it. I know that it can be pretty hefty if you've never done it before, but it's just getting it to create that magical repository where we're gonna put our snapshots, git add to add all the things to this like staging area, git commit to take a snapshot of everything that's in staging and put it into this magical repository folder for use later on. And you're gonna be doing this constantly as you're writing your code. What I would like for you all to do is to attempt to make your first commit. Let's walk through the steps. So let's do a clear here, and let's go ahead and do a git status. We can see that we're on main, we're doing good. Let's go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to call this about.html. So we have a new HTML file. Let's go ahead and add this file to our staging area. What is the command to add this file to our staging area? Git add, and we can do about.html, adding just that specific file to our staging area. How could I see what's in the staging area? Boom. So we can see these changes to be committed. They're on our staging area. They have not been committed yet. How can I take all this stuff that's in staging, make a snapshot of it, and make sure that that gets saved away? We're going to do it. Git commit -m, and we're going to say add it about me page. There we go. Now we've created a new snapshot, and now I have a few snapshots. I have a snapshot from when there was just an index file. I have a snapshot from when there was an index and an other, and a snapshot from when there was an about me. So now we have these different snapshots that we can use later on. And I'm going to show you how to see them in a little bit when we get to GitHub. All right, we got 2 more big concepts, 3 more big things to get through. We're going to talk about branches real quick. Then we're going to talk about GitHub and how we can start using that. And then we are going to see how GitHub Pages work. And that'll be really quick, but it'll blow your mind, guaranteed. What if you really were working on something that you knew was going to be difficult, and you felt like you wanted to try to make a change? Yeah, exactly, Simba. Exactly. What if you wanted to make a change, but you were afraid of maybe messing everything up? Borking the whole folder, afraid of like, all right, if I make all these changes, I might not be able to get back to where I started. We could make a snapshot and be able to roll back to that snapshot. But there's also something really interesting that we can do that's somewhat similar, and that's called a branch. So let's go ahead and take a look at a branch. So branches are ways that you're going to eventually, when you're working with other developers, use them a heck of a lot to make new changes and new features and new things. But I really like them even when I'm just working by myself, because I can take some risks, go really deep down the rabbit hole. And if I don't like it, I can just switch back to where I was very, very quickly. Let's go ahead and clear this real quick and do a git status. We can see that we are on the main branch, so we're in a good spot. What we're going to do is this command here, git branch, and we're going to call this risky. I'm going to make some of that risky code changes. So I'm going to create a new branch called risky, and give me a second to like show you how this works, because it'll be very visual in a second. What I am going to do is check out that branch that I just created. Git checkout risky. And now you can see that I am no longer on main. I am now on risky. So what I can do now is I can do another git status if I just want to be double sure. Cool. I'm on branch risky. I see that. Let me go ahead and make some changes. I'm going to add another HTML file called risky. And we're going to hit enter. And we are going to see down here that we have the risky HTML file that's there. That's where I'm going to like make that change I'm not really sure about, the thing that I don't want to worry about too much. It's there, right? I added it. I created that file. Let me go ahead and do a normal commit. I'm going to do git add, and I was going to add that file, and I'm going to commit my changes. Git commit -m, add it, risky HTML, not sure about it. Cool. Just letting myself know that this was a risky HTML file. I'm not too sure about it. The really cool thing that I can do now is, you know what? I think this worked really well. I could keep it if I want, or I can say, you know what? I took the risk. I didn't like it. I don't want to delete it though. I might come back to it later. I might figure it out. Maybe I just need the night to think it through a little bit more, let it marinate in the brain. I might come back to it later. So what I can do is I can switch back to my main branch. I can leave all of this here. Like if I do git status, you can see that I'm on branch risky. I can leave all this here and go back to main. So let me go git check out main. And look what happened. Look at that magic that just happened. I don't know if you missed it, but there was some magic that happened down there. When I switched back to main, that risky HTML file, poof. Because that risk that I took is on a different branch. And so I can leave it on that other branch. I can come back to it later if I want. I can check out risky and make some more changes to it. Maybe I can go talk to somebody else on Discord and say, hey, I'm having this trouble on this branch. Come back to it, make those changes. And then once I'm happy, like once I'm really happy with risky and I'm like, you know what? Risky is ready for prime time. I want this to be part of my project going forward. I can always merge it back into main. So I can do git merge Risky. Now, if you look, you can see Risky came back. Risky is no longer sequestered to the Risky branch. I have merged Risky into main, and it's all there for me now. I really like these branches for when I'm working on stuff that I'm not sure I want it to be included in my total project, or if I'm getting help from somebody else, I'll put it in a different branch. I'll make all my changes, and then I get to make the decision later on if I want it part of my main project. So this is where Git becomes really helpful for me in my day-to-day. One, I'm able, from the first part that we saw, to take these snapshots that I can save for later. I'm also able to create these branches that I can work on different bits of functionality. And if I like it, I can merge it. If I don't, it can stay there. If I need to get help, I can share it with other folks. And so that's kind of where this stuff starts to really become magic and really change my workflow as a developer. I'm seeing a lot of cools, mind blowns. So I hope that this is something that you're going to be inspired to use as we continue on with the rest of 100 devs. You might have to come back. You might have to try it out. You might have to play with it a little bit, but it's here to be a tool that you can use. So we're going to look at two more things, GitHub and GitHub Pages. You might now feel a little bit more comfortable with Git. You're like, all right, snapshots that I'm saving, branches that I can make some risky stuff on. That makes sense. What the heck is this GitHub thing that was in the title? Well, GitHub has one really strong importance for your day-to-day as a developer. And that's the idea of having a local repository, like that magic folder where we're saving all of our snapshots, and a remote repository, meaning that you can have your Git repository, that magic folder where all your snapshots go, that can just be on your machine. And that's it, right? It can just stay on your local machine and you'll be fine. Or, and this is where it gets really useful, you can save all those snapshots to the cloud. You can save them all to GitHub. And so if you ever need those previous snapshots or you ever need your code, it's all on GitHub. It's all on the cloud. So if something was, God forbid, knock on wood, I need to throw some salt after stream. If there's something that happened wrong with my laptop, all my code every day I back up to GitHub. Every single day, probably 15 times a day, stuff is getting pushed up to GitHub obsessively because I don't want it just on my local machine. I want it out there on the cloud as well. So let's see how we can take all the stuff that we did today and get it going on GitHub. We're going to see how to have those repositories, but it's also worth to point out that GitHub is not only backup, it's a whole suite of tools that enable you to work with other developers. Tonight was about us. It was about getting our code backed up, getting our code snapshotted, learning about branches, putting them on these in the cloud via GitHub. But on Thursday, we're going to talk about how we can work with other developers because as part of 100 devs, y'all are going to start working with each other. And so you're going to need ways to be able to share your code and have lots of tools that make it easy to share and to see what other folks are doing. And that's what GitHub really excels at. So if you haven't made a GitHub account, you're going to need a GitHub account. After you create a GitHub account, you are then able to push your snapshots to GitHub. You're able to push them to GitHub. All the commits that you made, to push them to GitHub, there are some things you have to do. The first thing you're going to do is go ahead and create a new repository. I am going to go to my GitHub account and I am going to click this little plus icon with the drop down and do new repository. Clicked on new repository and I'm going to name my repository. This is going to be my remote repository. We have our local magical folder. This is going to be our magical folder in the cloud on GitHub. Let's go ahead and call this example class. I'm going to keep it public and I'm not going to add any of these options. I'm going to click on create repository. Now I have a new place to save my snapshots to that isn't on my local machine. And the really cool thing is that GitHub gives you all the commands that you're going to need right there. So you can literally just kind of copy and paste. Oh, we don't like to copy and paste around these parts, right? You can go ahead and copy and paste these commands right into your terminal. We have already done git init, so we already have a repository, so we don't have to follow that command. If you want to add a README, you can. What a README does is that it tells you like what's happening in your repository. So when other folks look at it, they know what the heck's going on with all your code. We're not going to add a README tonight. We'll do that on Thursday and then of course during office hours. We have already done our first commit. And we've already named our branch main. So we've already done a lot of these steps. The really two big steps we need are these last two here. We need to connect our local repository to our remote repository, or the remote that we're using for right now. So we can go ahead and let's just make sure we have a git status here. We can see that we are on the main branch. Let me go ahead and do a clear. We're on main, we're good. We're just gonna go ahead and add this remote origin. I'm gonna copy it, I'm gonna paste it right in and hit enter. So we added that remote. We're gonna do this last command that's right here for us. Grab this git push and I'm gonna hit enter. And this is where the magic works. I have set up something called an SSH key. If you don't have that set up, it's gonna ask you to put in a username and password. That's your GitHub username and password. Remember, when you're typing in passwords, you're not gonna see them in the terminal. I already have my key set up, but if you're doing this, following along right now, you're gonna have to put in your username and password. When you come back to this page and you refresh, would you look at that? All of our code is now not only on our local machine, but it is now hosted on GitHub as well. We can have all of our snapshots, all of our commits going up to GitHub as well. So God forbid, knock on wood, I'm gonna throw salt after class, something was to happen to my computer, all my code is now also backed up here on GitHub. And it's very easy to pull this code down. We'll see that on Thursday and I can use it. The other thing that you can see is look at all of our commits. So here are all the commits that we've done so far. You can see I added all my front end files, added another HTML file, added about me, added my risky HTML, right? You can see when I made those commits, and using these commit IDs, we will be able to roll back to one of those previous snapshots if we wanted to. That's the beauty of GitHub. I've pushed all my changes up here. I am going to show you one last cool thing before we end tonight, and that is GitHub Pages. GitHub Pages, once you have your code up here on GitHub, it's super easy to make your stuff host it. You ready? I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be real quick. I'm gonna go to where it says main right here next to the branch. And I'm gonna type in gh-pages. That's it. I'm gonna hit enter and my stuff's hosted now. It's hosted. I can go to Leon Noel, which is my GitHub username, .github.io, and then the name of my repository. My name of my repository was example class. So I'm gonna do example class and index.html. Boom, there we go. It's hosted. It's live, the world can see it. And that is how you can host stuff. Once your code's on GitHub, you literally just create the branch GitHub Pages, gh-pages, and boom, it's hosted. It's live. What? It's so easy. On Thursday, we're gonna see how you can push more code up and see these things change as you kind of make changes. So if you've been using something else, this is really easy because all your code's going here anyway. You're gonna be pushing all your snapshots here up anyway. So might as well have it hosted here as well, because as you push your changes, it's changing here as well. We learned about a lot of stuff tonight. We learned the basics of the terminal. Hopefully that's not as scary anymore. The idea that there's some basic commands about how you can control your computer without a GUI, a graphical user interface. You learned the commands to be dangerous in the terminal. You can delete a whole bunch of stuff now. Then you saw the basics of Git, how this idea that we can make these snapshots of our code that we can go back to later on if we want to. We learned about branches. So you can make some risks, make some changes, not mess with your entire code base. And if you like the changes you made, you can merge them back into main. We saw how to get our code from just being in our local magical repository. Now we have that code going onto GitHub. So we have not only a local, but a backup in the cloud as well. And then we saw once we have our code on GitHub, how easy it is to have it hosted through GitHub Pages. Whew! Your homework is to do this introduction to GitHub. It's free, offered by free from Microsoft. Thank you, Microsoft Azure, for sponsoring the stream. We're gonna do this for homework. This is an introduction to GitHub. It's going to talk through the tools that we didn't get a chance to talk about. It's going to talk through how we as developers can work together once we have our code on GitHub. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you had some fun. I hope if you're watching this and you're not on Twitch, that it's not as scary anymore. You're not afraid to get into the terminal. You're not afraid of this thing called Git. I hope you had some fun. Let's do some raffles.